Okay, moving on to item 9, CFO report. Roger, up again.
Ron, I'd like to make a couple of introductions before we get into the report. Joe Braddock is your new CFO, and Casey McCarty is your new controller.
Welcome.
All right, welcome aboard.
So as I was driving in this morning, the sun was coming up, and I looked and I thought, oh, what a beautiful morning. And Joe, I had the thought, oh, it'd be so much more beautiful in Big Bend. So yes.
You got new tires when you do it.
Of course, Michael tells me he's still got projects for me to do, so I'm still gonna be here. Before I get into the report, give you an update on the odds and ends audit is proceeding. I spoke with Krista Worley late last week, and she said they're going through a lot of the information that we had sent to them. In January, Art will recall that we did a blitz on just sending a whole bunch of stuff to Waco, to Forbes. And they're still in the process of digging through and pulling information out of the document that we sent down to them. Cost report is completed and has been filed as of in February. And the good news is the AHA survey, the annual survey, is commencing. And those of us in the accounting department are just so happy that it's that time of year. So we will get it accomplished. Any questions on that information? Doc, I don't need to put my back to
Sorry,
it here.
you're good.
Need to sit down here if I may. Okay, you have a summary of points to ponder. We've gone through number 1. Let's go to number 2 and page 1 of the report. And we'll go through this pretty quickly. I've got some, I have some notes on the respective financial reports, going through and reviewing. Well, the good news is, I'm just full of good news. With Casey's assistance, we have the financials caught up through February.
Whoop, whoop. Great.
So it doesn't mean that everything is done. We saved a little bit for Joe to do because he needs to feel like he's part of the team, and we are going to utilize his past expertise. Joe has had district hospital experience before, so not wanting to put words in his mouth, but he told me that there's a lot of things that he sees here that he recalls from being elsewhere. So, a few footnotes here. The breaking out the or footnoting the impact of the Blue Cross settlement last year, which was very favorable, and as a result, we have good things happening this year, but not as good as it was last year financially. A couple of pieces of information here. The $455,000 that was identified, recorded under non-operating revenues, that should have been up here in the deductions from revenue where you see the 0. And then we also had the $570,000 of Blue Cross settlement in the Vistra energy late filing penalty, or late appeal penalty, but that was a couple of $100,000 there. Moving on to page 2, balance sheet. I promised you $10 million in the bank on the financial statement, and I just want to show you, there it is. That's such a pretty number. Moving on to page 3, the income statement for February. The arrows are pointing to, well, our revenues are up, gross revenues are up, because we're taking care of more patients here than we have in the past. We've got $39 million for 5 months year to date versus budget of $38 million, and last year at $33,400,000. However, we're seeing a downward trend on net revenue, where we were able to take $39 million and convert it to about $12 million of net revenue versus 12.6 of budget and $13 million of last year. We're going to be doing some additional analysis and deep dive to get a better appreciation of why our charges are going up, but our net revenue has fallen down somewhat. Similarly, our salary and wages have gone up, mainly because we've been taking care of more patients and generating more gross revenue. But those 3 categories are goals for digging deeper and looking at the numbers much more closely. We are behind in our writing down of self-pay balances for presumptive charity consideration. And as we're going to see here in just a minute, self-pay still makes up about 1/3 of the hospital's receivable, and referencing Schedule 7. On to page 4. I did not get the stars on here, but if you look here under accrued interest, you'll see a reduction of $210,000, and under long-term debt, a reduction of about $500,000. That's as a result of our making a payment on bonds, principal, and interest. So we're good for a few more months, and then we'll be making another interest-related payment in 6 months. Going down to page 5, let's see if I can get this flipped. There you go. Okay, this is the trended hospital operating statement, October through February current year, and then comparing it to October through February prior year. Again, these numbers are a bit different because the first report that we saw of the income statement was consolidated, and as I mentioned, this is hospital specific. So our gross revenue is $34 million versus a little shy of $29 million for last year, so we're up about 5.25. You look here, our net income before bad debts is right at 10 versus 8 last year. However, when we get down to the net revenue line here, we're at 8.2 versus 9.3 last year. So we're about $1,100,000 under, of which the majority of that is the reduction in bad debt expense as a result of the Blue Cross settlement. We come on down, let's come on down to the, hold on, we're going to go for a ride. There we go. This is a new schedule which you have not seen before, and it is an analysis of our accounts receivable from September of last year through current month, or February 29th. Here's the Blue Cross aging, the commercial managed aging, Medicaid, Medicare, and self-pay. And note here that self-pay is, this category is a blend of self-pay, no-pay, or sometimes we refer to it as self-pay from the get-go. Patients who come in and receive services but do not have any insurance. And then it also includes self-pay after insurance pays. We have a number of patients who do have insurance, but they have large deductibles and co-insurance so that they can afford their major medical coverages. We're talking about possibility of an early out collection program on a contingency basis. Because if you look at the aging, you're going to see, or you do see, that self-pay AR is running about $3 million, and that makes up about a third of our total accounts receivable. We only have, in essence, 1.5 FTEs, or 1.5 people here in the building who do self-pay collections, and these numbers can be relatively challenging for them to be able to work with all of our patients.
No question. Can you please explain the aging categories here?
The aging categories are based upon how old the patient claim is from date of discharge. So the claims that are in 0 to 30 have been discharged within the last 30 days. And then as you go further out, 31 to 60, 61 to 90, the intent is to try to collect as quickly as possible so that we don't end up having a lot of accounts receivable trying to work through. Back in the day when we had I-35 and MMP, we had a lot of accounts receivable that basically got to the point that the pipeline was rather clogged. So Art's been able to work through the majority of that, and this is all hospital. I don't believe there's any I-35, well,
No,
the
yeah.
clinic's not included in this one, but.
It's all hospital.
Trying to get all that cleaned up and out there so we can actually take a look at the true hospital numbers.
Roger.
I have a question.
Yes,
When
sir.
you get back to September of '23 and you've got the Blue Cross, is that a normal percentage of late pay? They're going back that many months? And if it is, and it goes in each one of these categories, what is the percent of collection in hourly pay? Then it gets down to self-pay, which if you're trying to get it from individuals, that's a lot tougher. I would assume, is that right?
That is correct.
So what percentage of this outstanding amount that goes back to September for Blue Cross can we expect?
On the top of page 7.
Oh, you got page 7?
You will find your answers. That's okay, Joe. So, page 7, at the top, it shows you the percentages as far as AR by the respective payers.
There you go.
Okay? And the reserve requirements, and not only the reserve requirements, but the average that we typically collect from each respective payer here's Medicare, and you can see that Medicare collections typically run about 16, 17 cents on the dollar. Medicaid does not include the Section 1115 or uncompensated care. This is just patient accounting. It typically runs about 12 cents on the dollar of charge. The Blue Cross, in answer to your question, it normally runs 40 to 41 cents on the dollar. Now, different treatments and modalities will get paid differently. Inpatient is paid prospectively with DRG, diagnosis-related grouping. Outpatient is typically paid based upon a fee schedule. So, for the most part, we know upfront how much we're going to get paid for each individual patient based upon their diagnosis and CPT codes.
Okay, maybe I didn't ask the question right. 'Cause what I wanna know is, you got, your Blue Cross, they're out since September for $775,000, so is that typical for the way they pay? And out of that $775,000, each one of these categories, what percent of that money do we normally collect?
Well, the Blue Cross numbers here going back to September are slightly skewed because if you recall, we had just implemented the Blue Cross settlement and had adjusted all the claims off from February of 23 and prior. So I would say as you come across that February of 24, which is about $300,000 more than September of 23. February of 24 is a more typical aging for Blue Cross and what we'll see on a go-forward basis.
Kind of answering your question, a lot about what you're gonna see in there is gonna depend on what type of service it was. So,
Is that's normal though?
yes, that's normal.
So that's 180 days out.
Yes. And
That's
so,
normal.
so if you get a Blue Cross that say is an inpatient, and you end up having to do an appeal, we have to get a doctor involved, Cat's having to help us send medical records, anything like that, then that's gonna push out further. It will go anywhere from 6 to 9 months, sometimes a year down the road before you get paid. And we don't give up on it, so it stays on our AR the whole time.
It is 180 days out, but if you look at the first three aging categories, you've got 70 to 80% is in the first three aging categories, and then it drops down.
Our average on keeping a claim on our AR is about 32 to 33 days.
That's not bad.
So that's,
180
what you
days.
ran, about 32, Joe? 32 was the last number you ran?
Yeah, you're turning that in 33 days, that's not bad.
So most of them we can turn over that fast, some of them quicker. It's just every now and then if we have a diagnosis or if Blue Cross has come back and taken some money back and it goes back on the AR and we're having to fight for that additional money, then it does settle your AR while you're doing that.
I have one more question, I'll shut up.
Oh, you're
If this stuff ages 180 days and we've got $750,000 sitting out here in Blue Cross, 180 days out, what can you typically, what percent of that $750,000 will we get? If you keep hammering at it, but eventually, huh?
Eventually you can get about 40%, 40 to 46%.
So when it gets that old.
You're still gonna get paid by contract. It's just,
So out of
the
the
fight
700,
goes
we get
in.
280 grand.
If we look again at the Blue Cross and look over right here, we reserve $775,000. We're saying that the contractual, estimated contractual is gonna be $450,000. And the bad debt associated based upon the age of the account is going to run about $10,000. So the net receivable there, based upon historical payment, is going to be 41%.
Okay, once again, I look at the big number, forget you gotta get out the little number. It's the same percentage. Okay.
We're still looking for the same percentage. Yes.
If we get critical care, will any or all of those pennies on the dollar go up?
If we get critical access, we will get improved reimbursement for traditional Medicare patients. It will not carry over to any other payers, including Medicare Advantage.
So like Blue Cross or any of those, just Medicare?
Just Medicare traditional. If a patient is opted out of Medicare to a Medicare managed care plan, that will not be addressed by a critical access. It's just Medicare traditional utilization. So I encourage all your friends, go off Advantage and come back to Medicare traditional.
Just out of curiosity, what percentage of patients that are billed pay electronically nowadays? I would assume that would make receiving the money a lot quicker and a lot easier.
Well, just about everybody, we have paid electronically. We have very little green stuff come across except for self-pay patients. And we do have, periodically, we do have some who come from Mexico across the border, and they typically bring cash with them. But
So we've
probably Avocare is
had a few show up for surgery, who've had cash in the thousands. So we do have lock boxes both up here and downstairs that is locked up in. Not near as much as it used to be, but there is still a little.
As Art was saying, our net AR days are running in the 30s. Looks like it's averaging between 30 and 33, a little bit higher this last month. Calculating the average daily net revenue is running in the mid $40,000 a day. And I think that is going to conclude the finance report, unless there's more questions.
Anyone? If not, thank you, Roger, appreciate you.
Thank you, Ron.